Of the December 11th, 2019 meeting minutes.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
So, support.
Been moved and support. Any discussion?
Good, how are you?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Stayed
Ayes have it. Next item.
stayed up too late.
New business, item D1.
Yeah.
Communication from Wayne County Legislative Auditor General forwarding a copy of the 2019 annual report from the Wayne County Office of Legislative Auditor General.
I'd like to welcome the Auditor General, Ms. Cora, and her staff, and any guest if she has them. And so, but welcome, Ms. Cora, and please proceed.
Marcy Cora, Auditor General, and if Mike could introduce himself.
Mike Cisnowski, Audit Manager.
What you have before you, Shane, I provided everybody a colored copy for your records, and then also I believe we sent out a colored copy as a PDF so that if you wanted to share it on your websites, Facebook pages, whatever you like, because we're very proud of our annual report. So what you have before you today is our OAG 2019 annual report. This report is submitted in accordance with Section 3.119 of the Wayne County Home Rule Charter and applicable sections of the Code of Ordinances and Rules of Procedures of the Commission. So what I'm going to do is go through and briefly highlight some of the pages of the report. I'll start with page Roman numeral 3I. This is our staff directory, so this lists all the individuals in our office with their positions, email addresses, and phone numbers. So if anybody was trying to get a hold of any of our staff, this is how you can contact them. Moving on to page 2. The mission of the OAG is striving to be a world-class internal audit organization, offering value to county managers, officials responsible for governance, and citizens. Our purpose is to examine and evaluate county activities in order to achieve transparency and accountability of public funds, improve the operations of county government for the benefit of the Wayne County citizens and the customers of its services. All our reports and products issued by the OIG are performed in accordance with generally accepted government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States and/or international standards for the professional practice of internal auditing issued by the Institute of Internal Auditors. And for everyone is aware that every 3 years, our office goes through a peer review where an outside organization comes and looks through our processes to ensure that we're in compliance with standards. And this is a year that the peer reviewers will come on site probably around mid-July, August, and perform their peer review of our operations. We're very proud that every year we've got a clean opinion from the peer reviewers. The next page, page 3, this is an organizational chart of the office. As you can see on this organizational chart, we have 2 vacancies, a staff auditor and a deputy auditor general. We determined some time ago that we would not fill the deputy auditor general position, but the position has not been repurposed as either senior auditor or staff auditor. Once we're able to recruit somebody for this position, we would do that.
I have a question for you. We're required by charter to audit every department every year, is that correct? Every 2 years, I'm sorry, it's early. So are we keeping up with that?
We haven't been able to audit every department. Well, the way the charter is written, it's every transaction. How we interpret that, to hit every transaction, you could not hit every transaction. So we try and audit every department or elected official every 2 years. No, we have not hit every 2 years. But also with the standards, the charter was written several years ago, but the standards require you to plan your audits based on risk. So we try and make sure that we're covering the risk to the county, which I think is more important than making sure we hit every 2 years. We would like to hit every department or elected official every 2 years, but also remember that risk is the most important thing when determining an audit.
So that makes the commissioner's case that we actually do need to fill these positions,
Yes.
was my point. So, if we get a chance to talk to Ways and Means, it actually, or Human Resources, I think it would behoove us to sort of express that.
And if I can also add that we are meeting, Tim Johnson, myself, and Mark Abel are meeting with Steve Malin from Personnel Human Resources on Thursday, trying to come up with a strategy as how we can go out and recruit individuals for these positions.
Commissioner Webb.
Thank you. Are they funded?
Yes.
Okay. Please proceed. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Coleman.
So, did you say, how many did you say you have vacant?
Right now, we have 2 funded vacant positions.
2 funded vacant. And they are what classification?
We have one that's classified as a deputy auditor general, but we determined a long time ago when I became auditor general that we wouldn't, and I was in agreement that we wouldn't have a deputy auditor general. But my agreement was that instead of having a deputy, because I could handle the administrative side, I would rather have an auditor who could go out and do the actual audit work.
Makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense to me.
so whenever, we will change the position title once we're able to recruit somebody for it, but that's how it is on the books right now is.
Okay,
You done, Commissioner Coleman?
yes, yes.
Thank you.
The next few pages of the report is just staff biographical sketches.
Oh, look at the photo.
Yeah, tried to put a little bit of
Yeah, I have a-
background
I have
on
a-
each of the auditors, their history, where they come from. And I did some looking back yesterday at all the experience within our office. Of the 10 individuals, 2 are part-time. But of the 10 individual, we range from about an average of 11 years' experience just in our office. And if you look at entity-wide for audit experience, we're probably over 25 years' experience. But just in the OAG, we've had an average of 11 years. 3 people in our office have had over 20 years with the OAG. So that's going through all of our little sketches. We're going on to page 10. We did have a couple personnel changes in our office. Kim Dorsey left our office in July. She went on to become, I believe it's the financial director for the township of Royal Oak. And then we also recruited Erica Jones as a senior auditor.
Yes.
Page 11, this is just a couple of the interoffice groups we have. We have a strategic audit group that comprised of myself, Mike, and John. What this group does is we look at our responsibilities are to review, develop, and revise our audit policies and procedures so that we can ensure that we're in compliance. And then we're also operating as efficiently as possible. Then also design appropriate audit project procedures and processes to ensure that our audit work processes are in compliance with standards. We have a technical assistance group, which I think is important because, as you are aware, all of our audit work papers and support is electronic now through our teammate system that we've had for probably 10 years now. So we have a technical assistant group, which consists of myself, John, and Andy. So the responsibility of this group is just to make sure that our office technology, including selection, installation, implementation, and data for our computer systems, software, and related peripherals. We want to make sure that we have the best processes work in the office. And something we do, and John's very good at in our office. He's our computer technical person. So if somebody's having issues in the office, we go to John, saves calling the help desk, waiting for the help desk. And John's usually able to help get everything up and running again.
To that point, and this is a little bit macro on that, but we're spending pretty significant amounts of money, the county is, on trying to update our software throughout the county. Is there any movement by your office to look at how we're progressing countywide? The import-export capabilities, how we, one department works with another, the interaction, those sorts of things?
That's something maybe Mr. Abel can add to as far as his ERP. I believe someone from his office is on the task force for the implementation of the ERP. I think that's what's going to bring everything together. Our office is not involved in that.
Actually, the person on my staff that's more involved in that is Mary Carr, and you're correct. We are trying to make sure that departments are kind of cross-functional as far as their software goes.
But I guess my thing is like, it seems like the past has been, we select a software company, and then they have proprietary, I guess, to their software, and then we wind up bidding these no-bid contract, or not bid, but granting these no-bid contracts, and we're locked in, and over a period of time, if you see what's happened to the county in the past, in my opinion, we need to avoid that in the future, and we need to make sure that, we purchase this software, and it's obviously over my head, but other than vote on it in mega bucks, and then a few years down the road, we find out we're trapped to this proprietary software. So are they looking at that sort of thing?
They are, but there's very little you can do about that. Unfortunately, that is going to be the situation. We are going to be trapped with this company for a long time because the cost to implement this software, to purchase this software and implement, is going to be about $30 million. And once we're in order to change, we're going to be subject to whatever their pricing is. Now, the good news is that they've got the organization has a lot of customers. The software that we're purchasing has a lot of customers worldwide. So I think they have to be careful, and so they have to be competitive. And the annual charges that they would make to Wayne County will be consistent with the rest of their customer base. But there's very little, unfortunately, there's very little you can do about that because of the cost to transition to a new software company. However, that is being considered in the contract that was negotiated with them.
Commissioner Webb,
Thank you. Just as somebody who's, my whole career was in IT
would you hit
side.
your button there?
I'm sorry.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, no problem. And the thing is with that is once you got all their systems inside, no matter who it is, so you gotta go to bid, you have to go through the whole bidding process and be diligent up front because once you get into something like that, they're the only ones that know how to do it. They're the only ones, there's so many patents around it. It's just how the industry operates. There's no other way you can do it. No one's gonna touch it. No one else is gonna touch their stuff. If you do, you void all their warranties. So it's just the nature of the beast that, I mean, you can competitive bid it and make sure you get all these assurances and contractual stuff that protect you from them gouging you or put some limitations on things as far as costs go. But once you marry yourself to a software company like that, it's just embedded in everything. Even the hardware is like that for most cases. So that's just the nature
That
of
was
the
actually
beast.
that was actually a major concern that I expressed when they were doing some of the they were kind of laying out the program to a lot of the departments and again being trapped into a contract with them. And the best way that you can protect against something like that is to look at the culture of the organization
Yep.
that you're dealing with and what they've done in the past with the customer base that they did have. And so you try and mitigate the risk as much as possible, but that's all it is just mitigating risk. I mean, if it becomes too expensive, we can move on. And the good news is that the practice that we're having to keeping the software update will be automatic now rather than with J.D. Edwards, where it's just a patchwork is what it is right now. It was old technology, and updating it was the old style of doing it. We're actually coming in and putting the software into our servers updates, and that's going to be done automatically now. That's so that whenever there's an update, it gets applied automatically and more consistently.
Ms. Core?
I'd agree with Mr. Abel too, and also I think with the new system that they're gonna put in place now, before where we had PeopleSoft was our personnel system, then we had J.G. Edwards, our financial system, but now everything's gonna be under one umbrella, so things will talk to each other, which I think causes a lot of inefficiencies in the county because systems didn't talk to each other.
Amen.
And as we talk about, web-based systems, several years ago, our office went out and we went to Teammate because we had Teammate in the office and the county used to maintain it for updates. But every time we needed an update, it would take IT 6 months to 8 months to put the update in place. So we invested, it's about $11,000 a year, but we have Teammates hosted by the vendor on their server, so we get automatic updates. As soon as the vendor has an update, they go and put it in place, and we don't have to worry about maintaining the software, I think. So I think it was a good $11,000 a year spent by not having to worry about how we're gonna get our updates.
Can I
Commissioner Webb,
Thank you. Yeah, to that point, so when I ran the technology committee, subcommittee in my first term, I went and met with every department and to find out what they were using, and it's the nature of its compatibility with its outside sources and its competitive, and its relationship entities. So the sheriff and the clerk and the court and the prosecutor, and they all had totally different systems. And they were all completely incompatible. They didn't talk to each other. They literally use sheriffs to drive documents. Kim Worthy gets her things from the district courts via a fax machine that has that print off of that paper that goes like this that I didn't even know they still made anymore, that I used to see in the phone company 25 years ago. But so it was if they can put everything on the same thing and get all those departments, there's no way they can do it without the overhaul, the complete overhaul and doing it all at once. And what you just said about waiting, that's literally how it started. Every department didn't want to be dependent on the administration to go through the process or other executives to decide what worked best for them, so they all bought their own stuff. So what ended up happening is the Tower of Babylon. Nobody could talk to nobody. So, if they can pull something together that gets everybody talking to everybody and then automatically updates and upgrades, that'll save time and money. So that's great.
If I might add one more thing, I don't think that anybody's ever really been able to quantify it, but I've always been persistent in asking about what is the full-time equivalent cost of dealing with a J.D. Edwards, which is so outdated. And I've got to believe that once we become more efficient and we can just push a button to get reports versus compiling them on Excel spreadsheets, we're talking about millions of dollars. It's not thousands, it's millions of dollars
Annually.
in full-time equivalent, in savings ultimately when the system is fully put online.
When will it be fully put online?
Years.
I think the expectation was 4 years. We're into the second year of that with a budget of $30 million. This year, somewhere between $8 and $9 million was budgeted. And actually, I was speaking with Mary Carr yesterday. We're going to ask the administration to put together an analysis showing what the total budget was, what's been expended, and how much they expect to spend in order to a final completion, to see where we stand in the context of the budget. So Matthew DeBay had indicated that he would start working on that analysis.
Thank you.
Moving on to page 12, in addition to the audit responsibilities of staff in the office, several of our staff also give back to the community by volunteering their time, talents, and expertise. One was Linda Hendricks. She's a project consultant. She spent her time throughout the year mentoring high school students through a program called Winning Futures. Another individual was Regina Lee, senior auditor. She volunteered her time and talents with the grassroots collaboration involving unions, businesses, residents, social service, and faith-based organizations in an entity called Bridging Communities. Our last individual, Erica Jones, she serves as secretary of her local Michigan State University Black Alumni Chapter and also supports other communities on the executive board. Moving on to page 13, these are,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Is that, do they voluntarily do that themselves?
Yes.
Or is it required?
They
or-
volunteer on their own time.
No, what I'm saying is that's not a requirement
No,
for
it's
the
not a
job.
requirement. No, not a requirement. It's just something they've been doing for years on their own time. And so we think it's, good to put in the report to show commissioners and the public, this is what some of our staff do on the outside.
I think that's admirable.
So Commissioner Coleman, you want to do some of that? All right. we'll
got
put
it
you
already
down.
done.
You
Thank
got
you.
something, you
I
got
do,
all that
actually.
right.
Christ net, but yeah, I'm just kidding. Please proceed.
Now we're moving on page 13. These are a significant accomplishment. Our first one, that the majority of our recommendations were implemented. We had 48 recommendations from previous audit reports where we went out and assessed the corrective action taken or follow-up taken on the recommendation. We determined of the 48 recommendations, 45 or 94% of the prior recommendations had either been implemented or in process. While it's not the 100% that we try to achieve, we still believe that 94% is a great percentage of our recommendations implemented. And it shows that, working with the auditees, we're able to achieve the recommendations, because when a recommendation is not implemented, it doesn't help the county at all. So we want to work so that we can get some kind of agreement how we can get the recommendation, then reduce the risk. And I think I'd just like to say, to get these recommendations implemented, it's not just our office, but I think, want to thank the chair of the committee and the committee members, along with the CEO and elected officials and the department heads, because it all takes us working together to make sure that we can get our recommendations implemented and get corrective action in place.
Commissioner Webb.
Thanks. Just to point to that, and I may be off on this, but I just, what I think that may contribute to going from 100% to 94% is also, as you audit, so you have this administration that's been there for 5 years, and you audit every department every 2 years. So as you go through these corrective action plans and they fix things, I mean, you're getting rid of the low line, the easy stuff to fix. So you're getting, what's only things that are left are the things that they really strongly disagree with you on, or things that are so embedded that aren't just easy things to fix without causing other problems, because everything has a trickle-down effect. So I do think that this is a testimony to what great work you're doing, and that how this committee is effective and your office is effective, because the things that are left to fix are harder and harder to fix. So, that's what I would take that for. I don't think that that is less successful. I just think that there's gonna be some things that either they're not gonna agree with us on, or they're gonna have too many other residual issues with, that they can't do it without doing a bunch of other things,
And I think what helps too is I think the auditees know now that when they come to the Committee on Audit, that, they're expected to be able to provide answers, and they're not going to be left, okay, you can't implement, okay, you go away and that's it. They know they're going to push it from the committee level to, let's try and get these recommendations implemented. And for an example, like we have our corrective action plan for the DPS permits, it's going to come to you, I think, at the next committee meeting. What we found is we had 5 recommendations that originally weren't implemented. So what we did is the staff went back out to DPS, sat down with them this week, actually it was on Monday, went out and sat down with them. By the time they left the meeting with DPS, they were able to get some resolutions to the corrective action. Like I said, just having something implemented doesn't help the county at all. We got to find a way to fix so we can mitigate the risk at the county.
Please proceed.
Continue on training goals. As you're aware, according to government auditing standards, our office is required to have 80 continuing professional education credits every 2 years. We're proud to say that we achieved our training goals objective. Each staff in the office received 40 hours each year for the total of 80 hours. Continuing on to page 14. Another way that we try to encourage staff development is to support the staff and members in their attainment of professional certifications. Here's listed some of the professional certifications we have in the office currently. And we have several staff members that are currently studying for other certifications, mainly the Certified Internal Auditor. Moving on to page 15, our productivity and review. On our 2019 audit work plan, we identified a goal of 25 audit reports and projects to complete for the year. We did complete 24 engagements along with, we had some administrative projects, probably about 6 administrative projects. Of the 24 audit reports, 4 were attestation, 1 was consulting, 4 financial assessment, 10 special projects, and 5 performance. Of those 25 reports, we had identified $26.7 million in financial impact to the county. The main number of the $26 million was attributed to the CCS report, which were the invoices that were submitted to the county for payment, did not have any supporting documentation, so there was no way to assess that those were the actual true costs to the county, along with some small dollar amounts related to the adult residential center report we did.
Nice.
Moving on to page 16 of the 5 performance reports. 2 of the significant reports we had were the Department of Health, Veterans, and Community Wellness WIC program and the Health, Veterans, Community Wellness, Health, Human and Veteran Service Correct Care Solutions. And on the performance report, this is our main engagement that we like to do, because this engagement provides an objective analysis to assist management and those charged with government oversight. The information provided in these reports can help improve program performance, operations, reduce costs, facilitate decision-making by parties who are responsible to oversee and initiate the corrective action, and thereby contribute to public accountability. I'm not going to go through the 2 types of reports. These reports were presented to the committee, but we did a little synopsis of the reports. Moving on to page 18. 4 of the reports were assured attestation engagements. These are engagements that include examination, agreed upon procedures, and compliance. These involve our office, objective assessment of evidence, providing an independent opinion on the conclusions regarding the process, systems, and objectives. One of the main assurance engagements that we do is the agreed upon procedures with the treasurer's office. This is where the treasurer's office pays our office $40,000 to go out as an agreed upon procedure to assess the taxpayer compliance with the stadium excise tax. And this is presented each year. It should be around June of this year. We'll have that report presented. Our consulting engagement, we had one consulting engagement, which is our budget-sensitive review of the CAFR report that's presented that helped the committee members in their budget deliberations and also gives an overview of the CAFR report. On page 19, we had 10 special projects. This includes our annual report. This includes our audit plan. These are other, could be letters. These are just other reports we do that aren't required under the standards. And if you look on page 21, this is the various training seminars and conferences attended by the county. It may look like there's a lot of training on here, just so that the committee is aware we are very prudent in how we spend the taxpayer dollars. The training that is paid for by the county includes our Ralph Grant Institute. This is our continuing professional education conference we do every year, the 3 days before Thanksgiving. It's $250 for each staff member to go to. And at that training, they receive 22 CPEs, which is, very cheap for CPEs for our office. And then the other one that we pay for is our checkpoint learning, which is about $750 a year. That allows each staff member, they can accumulate, 24 CPEs each year. But with our $750, we get 25 licenses. So what we've done, it's been going on for several years now because we only use 10 within our office. I've reached out to other county departments that have CPAs that need to get professional education, and we've allowed them to ride on to our CPEs so they can take advantage of the 24 credits. And we're paying anyways for them, might as well share them.
Sure.
Everything else on here is webinars that were free to the county, including the Plant Moran. They do a 8-hour seminar each year that's part of their contract as far as external audit. Moving on to page 23, this is just a list of the 24 projects that were completed by our office, color-coded to the type of projects. It kind of goes back to the pie chart. Our last item is Appendix C. This is our statement of organizational independence. This was a result of several years ago. One of our peer review recommendations is that we need to have some statement out there that shows that we're organizationally independent. And we thought a good place where we can present this report is in our annual report. So each year, we're attesting that we're organizationally independent. And we also include this in our audit plan. And if you look on the back page, we have a nice back page that shows all the committee members and leadership within the
Those are some
commission.
old pictures with some of them. That's a pretty picture of you,
If
Irma.
anybody would like their pictures updated for next year, you can share them with us.
Oh, you can get them from Tim.
Okay, we get it for Tim. And that concludes our presentation.
Okay, is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? Commissioner Kling.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess on the occasion of your annual report, Ms. Cora, I want to thank you big time for your office, the professionalism of the office. I'm well aware you go the extra mile. And I also think the public spiritedness of which you conduct, I think yourself in the office, I think bodes very well for fulfilling this vital role. Of course, when I got the report, I went right to the list of people working in your office, and I counted 10, and I was like, oh, crap, I thought it was 11. And then you mentioned today that 2 of them are part-time?
2 are part-time.
So we're really working with 9 people, which is exactly half of the staff when I got here for my first term. So I know the difficulties in hiring more, but I wish you luck there. I also wanted to ask you on page 23, you're color-coded all of the jobs you did this year. Of course, I like pie charts too. you know, there's a large number of special projects this year, and items 22, 23, and 24, I'm assuming that's corrective action plans?
Yes,
So those were from audits in a previous year.
correct.
I didn't know that the corrective action plan rose to the level of a special project. Is there, because I don't see all of the corrective action plans.
We list our corrective action plans as a special projects because they're not done in accordance with the standards. The original engagement is done in accordance with the standards, but the corrective action plan is found
okay.
upon the recommendation. So we label them as a special project.
Well, the other thing I wanted to ask you is I looked at this and the distribution of how many of each type of audit you're doing. You know, the performance audits, this is what we were discussing at the beginning, you know, of what's required in the charter, right, every 2 years. And so we got 5 of them last year. What do you think of the mix here? And ideally, is this the right kind of mix you would like for your office?
Performance audits do take a considerable lot more time than the other type of engagements on here. We would like to increase the number of performance audits we're doing, and one way we're trying to do that is maybe we can narrow in on our objectives for the performance audits, so we're not looking at as much. But a couple of these performance audits were requested from the commission, so that's why they were included into
Yeah,
their
that's,
engagement.
yeah, correct. But yeah,
Trying to find ways to streamline so we can get more performance audits
yeah,
done.
and I agree, and I think some discussions with the chair or whatever, when you're setting your schedule, because those performance audits are the core. No pun intended, Madam Cora. And I also want to say on that CCS well path audit, I thought that was outstanding, and it uncovered a lot of stuff and a lot of holes, and there was just, in committee yesterday, we just hired that additional person to come in to oversee, and, you know, there was such a lack of controls there, and so much bleeding, and such sensitive services, you know, that we're providing for the health of people that are our guests in the county jail. So I think that was outstanding, and got more controls and put the county on the right path was such a sensitive item. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Okay, there's a motion to receive and file. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Next item, Madam Clerk.
E, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
Ms. Cora?
Just a couple of things. I should have done it before, but, you know, part of the reason why we are successful is because of this committee, because we know that when the auditees come to the committee level, they're going to get questions, and they're going to be expected to have responses. And we know that the committee here has our back, so when we're going out to audit, and I think that makes it a lot more important. Then second thing I'd like to say is we're getting ready to send out letters for, as we put together our audit plan for 2020, so you should receive the letter within the next couple days, asking you if you have any concerns in the county that you'd like us to consider to put on our audit plan, so that you'll be seeing that. At the same time, we also send out letters to all the elected officials, ask them if there's any areas of concern they have within their departments. And then also we send out internal control questionnaire where we ask all the department heads and elected officials to go through, it's like 5 or 6 categories to identify the risk in their areas, then also to ask if there's any areas that they would like us to look at within their areas.
Ask a
Commissioner
question
Klein.
on that. When that comes out, are you also going to have in there like performance audits that you know already you want to do for the next year? Or is it just going to be a blank slate that people can just talk about what audits they, because again, I'm looking at the workload and I want more performance audits. That's the core of things. Do you automatically have a list of, we need to do these 4 or 5 or 6 performance audits this year, or whatever the number might be, and then add on to from that?
Yes, we start internally within our office where we believe risk is in the county, looking at the budget books, you know, things.
And
that
will I
come to
see
our
that in
attention.
your
It'll be
request?
it'll be no, what it will be is part of the audit plan, because we use that
Yeah.
information. And
But before I
gather-
start loading you up with special projects, I'd like to know what else you were looking at doing this year that might have a higher importance.
Yeah, we wouldn't have that determined yet, because we
Okay.
want to see what other risk is out there so that we can base our plan on risk.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next item, Madam Clerk.
Public comments?
Tim, is there anything you'd like to say about Brian? Anything? Okay, anybody from the public like to comment? Anybody from the public like to comment? Next item, Madam Clerk.
Adjournment.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Like a performance audit,
Yes, it was a performance.
but analysts.
They do a great job. You know, you guys got mad education. I just noticed almost everybody on your team.
And we just received our corrective action plan from CCS. We're in the process of assessing it now.
CCS? Well, Pat? Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, we strongly encourage it,
Yeah.
because not only helps them, but it helps the office as a whole,
and that peer review, that's every 3 years?
every 3 years.
I'm gonna have to get used to the color coding again. But our office always comes out as aces on that peer review. You know,
There's, yeah. Yeah, there's that list on the one page, of them are the ones that we currently have now in the office, but, we highly encourage the certified internal auditors, and also, I highly encourage somebody to sit for the CPA exam.
yeah. Well, that's part of the professionalism.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
you're right.
right.
Yeah.
That's part of the professionalism. I'm talking about those that you grow and groom and.
Yeah.
You can't afford me anymore? That kind of a thing? Yeah.
But like I said, we have 3 people that've been here over 20 years.
Yep.
Mike, you're what, 15?
I'll be 13. He said that there was somebody in his office that
I think Binion's looking for a job.
And he could come back as $1,000. He could come back as $1,000 employee, like, well,
Yeah, can you handle it?
I don't know if we could afford it.
He didn't lead me to believe that there was anything unusual.
I think,
I always like working with
yeah,
him.
I do too. I don't know how much he's making now with Pierce Monroe.
Yeah, well, they're making,
We need,
but, I dropped in,
we need to grow that
because
department.
at the time, when I first got here, I've been on audit since I've been here 13 years. So as Warren Check was the chair when I first got here, and he'd have his meetings
Compensation.
with Willie. And I would drop in on him,
Starting a lot.
and Binion was real helpful to me, because we'd have another little meeting, and he'd go, okay, this is what the audit says, this is what's really going on, right?
Context of what do we
And
do?
so to kind of get familiar, and I'm not being disparaging here, but to kind of get familiar with audit speak, so I know when I see things, what's really being said, because you have that little tightrope to walk with your auditees,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, they're a bunch of assholes, you really can't put that. No matter how much you would like to, put it in the report. So, yeah, Terrence was real helpful to me. Funny guy.
Yeah.
Funny
I see
guy.
him maybe once a week now, because he's working over here.
Yeah, I see him out, yeah.
Yeah.
And we got to know each other. I really like him as a person, we're talking and stuff. So I asked him, how did it go with the girls in high school being a stutterer? He was like, Commissioner, you'd be surprised. But I always thought he was sharp.
Yeah, very
And,
sharp, very
and he
sharp.
understood.
Yep. Great writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was somebody who was working with Pierce Monroe that was interested, so, Mark and I reached out to the guy, and then we found him.